There's a moment most people never talk about. A moment so small, so automatic, you barely notice it happening. Someone misunderstands you, twists your words, questions your intentions, makes you feel guilty for something you didn't even do. And suddenly, you start explaining. You explain your tone, your reasons, your silence, your choices, your boundaries, your pain. Not because you want to communicate, but because somewhere deep inside, you're terrified of being seen the wrong way. Now here's the uncomfortable truth. The moment you feel desperate to explain yourself, you have already handed the other person psychological control over your peace. And modern society trains you to live exactly like that. Always available. Always defending yourself. Always proving you're a good person. Always performing emotional labor for people who were never trying to understand you in the first place. This is why so many people today are emotionally exhausted. Not because life is hard, but because they spend their lives standing in invisible courtrooms, defending themselves to imaginary judges. And in this video, we're going to break that pattern completely. We'll talk about why people become addicted to explaining themselves. Why manipulative people secretly love when you over-justify your existence. How Stoic philosophy exposes this emotional trap. And why the most dangerous person in the room is often the one who no longer needs to be understood. But stay until the end. Because there is one brutal realization most people never reach until it's too late. Sometimes the more you explain your truth, the less people respect you. And once you understand why that happens, the way you move through life will never feel the same again. A few years ago, I watched a man destroy himself trying to prove he was innocent. Not in court. At work. Every meeting became a performance. Every conversation became a defense speech. Someone questioned his decision. He gave a 15-minute explanation. Someone misunderstood a message. He wrote paragraphs trying to clarify his intention. Someone criticized him unfairly. He emotionally collapsed trying to fix the misunderstanding. And slowly, people stopped respecting him. Not because he was weak, but because he revealed something dangerous. He needed approval to feel stable. Machiavelli understood something terrifying about human nature. People rarely attack where you are strongest. They attack where you emotionally react. The moment someone discovers you need to be understood, they gain power over your nervous system. And modern society runs entirely on this mechanism. Social media especially. Millions of people waking up every morning defending themselves to strangers. Trying to control perception. Trying to manage opinions. Trying to win invisible wars that never end. Marcus Aurelius warned about this thousands of years ago. You have power over your mind, not outside events. But most people today live in reverse. Their emotions belong to public opinion. A comment ruins their day. A misunderstanding ruins their confidence. A rumor ruins their sleep. Why? Because deep down, they still believe their worth depends on being correctly perceived. And that belief becomes a prison. Think about childhood for a moment. When you were young, explaining yourself probably kept you safe. You had to explain why you were late. Why you failed. Why you made mistakes. Why you broke something. If adults misunderstood you, punishment followed. So your brain learned something very early. Being misunderstood is dangerous. And most people never outgrow this survival mechanism. They simply bring it into adulthood. Now the boss becomes the parent. The partner becomes the authority figure. Society becomes the judge. And suddenly fully grown adults spend their lives unconsciously begging for emotional permission to exist peacefully. This is why over-explaining is rarely about communication. It's about fear. Fear of rejection. Fear of conflict. Fear of abandonment. Fear of losing control over how people see you. Epictetus said, "It is not events that disturb us, but our interpretation of them." Read that carefully. Someone's opinion itself is not the threat. Your emotional attachment to their opinion is the threat. That changes everything. Because once you understand this, you begin seeing society differently. You realize many conversations were never about truth. They were power negotiations. Some people don't ask questions to understand you. They ask questions to position themselves above you. Some people don't misunderstand accidentally. They misunderstand strategically. And the more emotionally desperate you become to correct the narrative, the more control they gain. This is why calm people appear powerful. Not because they know all the answers, but because they are no longer psychologically dependent on external validation. There's something deeply unsettling about a person who refuses to emotionally panic. Most people don't know how to deal with it. Because modern culture trains people to react instantly. Instant outrage. Instant defense. Instant explanation. Instant emotional exposure. But Stoicism teaches something radically different. Delay reaction. Observe first. Protect your inner world before protecting your image. That sounds simple. Until real life happens. Until someone lies about you. Disrespects you publicly. Questions your character. Makes you feel invisible. That's when the emotional addiction appears. The urge to immediately defend yourself. And honestly, most people never notice how humiliating this cycle becomes. They call it communication. But many times, it's emotional begging in sophisticated clothing. Please understand me. Please see my intention. Please don't think badly of me. And the darker truth? Manipulative people can smell this instantly. Not consciously maybe, but psychologically. Because insecurity leaks through excessive explanation. When someone speaks calmly and directly, people feel stability. But when someone overdefends every little thing, others instinctively sense fear underneath the words. Seneca warned that the person who tries to please everyone eventually loses himself. And nowhere is that more visible than in over-explaining. You slowly abandon your own center trying to manage other people's perceptions. Now let's be clear. Stoicism is not telling you to become cold. This is not about silence as punishment. This is about silence as self-respect. There's a massive difference. A Stoic doesn't stay quiet because he has nothing to say. He stays quiet because not every situation deserves access to his energy. That changes the entire dynamic. Because emotionally reactive people are predictable. Push them slightly, they explain. Question them slightly, they panic. Ignore them slightly, they chase validation. But someone grounded in himself? You cannot easily manipulate him. Because he no longer treats every opinion as an emergency. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If someone despises me, that is their problem. Mine is not to do anything deserving of contempt." That sentence alone can free a person emotionally. Because now your focus changes. You stop trying to control perception. You start building character. And character speaks slowly. That's important. Real strength rarely rushes to explain itself. Look at nature. The ocean does not argue about its depth. The mountain does not defend its height. The lion does not explain why it deserves respect. Only insecure systems constantly seek validation. And modern society is built on insecure systems. That's why people are rewarded for performance over substance. Look successful. Look happy. Look morally correct. Look emotionally evolved. Everything becomes theater. Machiavelli would probably laugh if he saw modern culture. Because people today expose their emotional weaknesses voluntarily. Every reaction posted publicly. Every insecurity uploaded online. Every emotional wound turned into content. And then they wonder why they feel psychologically exhausted. Here's the paradox nobody talks about. The more you desperately try to control how people see you, the less authentic you become. You start editing yourself constantly. Filtering words. Managing impressions. Anticipating criticism before it even arrives. And eventually you stop living naturally. You begin performing. That performance destroys inner peace slowly. Because now your nervous system depends on audience approval. And audiences are unstable. One day they love you. Next day they attack you. Stoicism frees you from this cycle by forcing one painful realization. You are not responsible for other people's interpretations. You are responsible for your actions. That's it. Not your image. Not your reputation in every room. Not every misunderstanding. Just your actions. That level of detachment terrifies insecure people. Because they need emotional control over others to feel powerful. But when you stop over-explaining, they lose access to your emotional steering wheel. And something strange begins happening. You become calmer. Not fake calm. Real calm. The kind that comes from no longer needing constant approval to feel safe. I remember a conversation that changed the way I saw this forever. Someone accused me of being cold because I stopped explaining myself constantly. Years earlier, I would have defended myself immediately. I would have explained my stress, my intentions, my reasons, my emotional history. But this time I simply said, "You're allowed to see me that way." And silence followed. Not aggressive silence. Peaceful silence. And in that moment, I realized something profound. Most people expect emotional access to you because you train them to expect it. When you stop over-explaining, many relationships change instantly. Some become healthier. Others collapse completely. Why? Because some people were never connected to your soul. They were connected to your emotional availability. Your guilt. Your need to be understood. Your need to keep harmony at your own expense. Once that disappears, the power dynamic changes. And honestly, that transition can feel lonely at first. Because silence forces you to face yourself. No performance. No defense mechanism. No endless explaining. Just you. Your conscience. Your choices. Your character. That's why Stoicism is difficult. Not because the philosophy is complicated, but because it removes emotional addictions most people mistake for personality. Now this doesn't mean you never speak. A Stoic is not passive. There are moments where clarity matters. Boundaries matter. Truth matters. Directness matters. But the energy changes completely. You no longer speak to beg for understanding. You speak to state reality calmly. Instead of, "Please let me explain what I meant," it becomes, "This is what happened." Short. Grounded. Clean. No emotional chaos attached to it. That level of restraint creates psychological weight. Because people trust calm certainty more than emotional persuasion. And ironically, when you stop trying so hard to be understood, people often understand you more clearly. Why? Because desperation creates noise. Calm creates clarity. So here's the challenge. For the next 7 days, stop explaining unnecessarily. If you're late, simply say, "I'm late." If you made a mistake, "I made a mistake." If someone misunderstands you intentionally, let them sit with their interpretation for a while. Observe the discomfort inside you. That urge to fix everything immediately. That urge to regain control over perception. That urge is the addiction. And every time you resist it, you reclaim a piece of yourself. At first it will feel terrifying. Your nervous system will scream. You'll think silence means weakness. But eventually something changes. You realize peace feels better than constant self-defense. You realize mature people don't need to explain every part of themselves. You realize real confidence is quiet. And slowly, you stop living like someone on trial. In the end, Stoicism is not about winning arguments. It's about no longer needing to win them to feel whole. That's the transformation. Because the strongest people are not the loudest. They are the ones who remain internally stable even when misunderstood. The ones who don't collapse under public opinion. The ones who don't surrender their nervous system to every criticism. The ones who understand that dignity grows in silence. And maybe the deepest truth of all is this. Your life changes the moment you stop asking the world for permission to trust yourself. If this message resonated with you, subscribe to StoicCraft for more deep explorations into Stoicism, emotional mastery, and the hidden psychological games shaping modern society. And tell me in the comments. In what situation do you feel the strongest urge to explain yourself? Because that answer may reveal the exact place where your freedom still hasn't begun.